Books make you hope. Books make you dream. Books make you laugh. Books make you scream. This is the Books That Make You show, discussing books with authors and experts, unraveling the inner pages of all the books that help make us who we are. Hosted by Desiree Duffy.
Hello, welcome bibliophiles. It is time for the Books That Make You show. I'm your host, Desiree Duffy, and today we're talking about books that make you want to travel to France, one of my favorite places. France is a beacon for travelers, explorers, and people who want to go on holiday from all over the world. Let's face it, everybody wants to go to Paris, right? Or the south of France, or Normandy, or Loire Valley, one of my favorite places in the entire world. So if you're thinking about packing your bags and heading to France, or maybe you're still dreaming about it, I know lockdown and travel restrictions are still in place. Well, what better to kind of live that adventure through a book than by reading a book about it? And that's what The Road to Villa-Page is about. It's written by the husband and wife team of Cynthia and William James Royce, and it takes readers on this adventure to southwestern France. And there's a lot of humor involved, and the chapters are broken up into these two parts, so you get her story and his story. It's just a delightful, fun, and really heartwarming read. Now, I'll give you just a little bit of information about each. Cynthia was the executive creative consultant on In the Heat of the Night. Remember that TV show? She did 33 episodes with them, and then she went on to write for Murder, She Wrote, Diagnosis, Murder, and Columbo as well. Cynthia also has a photography background, and she's got a photography book that looks like it's coming out soon. We might touch on that a little bit. Now, William is an award-winning author who has written for both stage and screen. His first play as a writer-director was the romantic comedy A Fine Romance, which premiered at the Actors Playhouse in Los Angeles. And he also has a new play, Everything Happens for a Reason, and that won the 2020 Audience Award at the Cornerstone Theater in New York. Now, together, they worked on this memoir, and it combines two things. One, it is William's dream of building a house or finding his dream house in France. And it also ties into Cynthia's goal of becoming a mother. Hello, Cynthia and William. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
All right. So there was quite a lot to unpack in that opening monologue. So I jumped around a lot. How about if you, in your own words, either one of you, Cynthia or William, tell us about the memoir. Tell us about why it was written and how it was written as well.
Well, so it was quite a journey, to just leave Los Angeles and to move to France. And in the beginning, we went back and forth quite a bit, visiting. It's one of our favorite places, like you, in the world to visit. And I had started getting into photography, so I was doing a lot of photojournalism things. And we finally found the house, and as it was so full of adventures all the time, Bill started, journaling and writing about it. And then at some point I said, you know what, maybe I should jump in and have my viewpoint, because our viewpoints often are different, as most husband and wives, I think, of things that happen at the same time, So it became a he said, she said version, which was really fun, and we're going to continue that in the books to come, but in a bit different format, but we can delve into that later. Did you have anything to add, sir?
Yeah, how I think it might have started, the actual book, was we had come back from France, and we were meeting with friends and family, and everybody had a million questions. And I started answering them the way I had seen our journey. And Cynthia had a completely different perspective on everything. So they would ask me, so do you think that the French are rude or whatever it is? And I would say, no. And in fact, and then Cynthia would have a different experience, and she'd say, well, the mothers and the wives. And it's like, so the story started, when we tell a story, just verbally, we realized we're not telling the same story. We have a completely different take on what we've just experienced. And so that's kind of how the book evolved. It was just going to be my perspective. And then we both realized this is much more fun and probably much more accurate, having us argue about what actually happened and how it happened. So that's kind of how the book evolved. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very creative too, because you have these two perspectives. And of course, we always have that female male perspective, that yin yang. And there's a lot of humor and a lot of heart within this as well. So tell me a little bit about when you were writing it, Cynthia, especially since you kind of came in and started writing after William. Were you reading through it and feeling just like, oh my God, what's he talking about?
Well, in a way, and then it also would inspire me to, remember and write about the things that I was more involved with, which is like Natalie's school, our daughter's school, and the teachers and the families, and the different parts that were my story, as opposed to his. So it became fuller that way, which I really enjoyed.
That's another thing I like about this. So you've got the main story, the journey to France, right? That's the main thing. But then you each have your ancillary stories. So Cynthia, we'll start with you since you brought it up. Tell us your unique perspective in the memoir.
Well, I wasn't like overwhelmed about going. I was ready to leave Los Angeles. We wanted to change, and we had both kind of grown up in a smaller town, smaller environment, and we wanted to raise a child in that kind of environment. But the thought of like just leaving and going to France was a bit like overwhelming for me. And I kept like, as it became more and more of a reality, I was like, okay, well, what the hell? And then it's like, because I'm very organized and I was an office manager, I became, a lot of the logistic part of it became my job, and making sure that everything, got done in time, and the dog went to the vet and got tests. And there's so many things that you have to do. So, but, I don't regret it. And I'm so glad we had the experience, and we're going back.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. Now, William, this was part of your dream, right? You were the one who had the dream house idea. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure when the idea struck me that I wanted to experience life in another country, but every time we have an extra dollar in our hands, we would travel. And that, long before we were writers for television, we would take $99 and go, whatever we could scrape together and go stay someplace. So I loved traveling. That's one of the things that I realized. And on our honeymoon, we decided that we would go to France. So it was our first experience there. And we had both taken high school French, and a little, other little tidbits of French had come to us, and thought when we got to Paris that we would be okay, that our French would be okay. And within an hour, I was ready to leave. I'm not kidding you. We had gone to a patisserie. We'd gone to get some croissants, and I could not understand the woman just asking me what I wanted. And then what she asked me was, do I now want this croissant? Do I want this warmed up in a microwave? I had no idea what she was saying. And everybody's waiting to get served, and I can't figure out how to answer her. And she starts to get a little upset. And we walked out, and I was, what are we doing here? Why did we come here? But within 3 hours or 4 hours of just being in Paris, it just felt so wonderful. But just like you, we went to the Loire Valley for our honeymoon. That's where we ended up going. And that was spectacular. Getting out of Paris and the insanity of Paris and getting there was wonderful. So I don't know how many years later, we were going to redo that trip for an anniversary, like say 10 years later or whatever. And I picked up this book I'd never heard of the Dordogne. And I picked up this book called The Most Beautiful Villages of the Dordogne. And I fell in love. And I knew when I looked at these pictures that that's where I belonged. We hadn't even gone to this area yet. And I fell in love. When we got to the Dordogne, I didn't want to leave. And I made Cynthia promise that we would come back. We came back within, I think it was like 3 months. I could not wait to get back to this area. And I knew when we saw Villa Page, when we saw the house, I had come home. I knew the minute I saw it that this was my home. We were driving up the driveway to this house, and I literally said, I'm home. This is it. I was stunned.
We looked at it and bought it in a week because that's all we had.
Wow.
It was insane.
And what were your thoughts, Cynthia, when you were driving up to the house? Were you on the same page, or what were you thinking?
I was thinking, oh shit, this is happening too fast. But it was beautiful. It was sitting in front of me, and I still didn't feel like it was real. It really felt like a dream because it was happening so fast, you know. But it was a reality for sure.
So tell us about Villa Page. I mean, my sketching, my drawing does not do it justice, and I know that we.
Great. I actually, just like you, when I got there, I started sketching it. I could not stop sketching this house. This. So it's there's a debate about actually how old it is. Half the house is one age, and then they added on. So the oldest part of the house is a couple hundred years old. And it has incredible detail, wonderful detail that most homes don't get. You know, they don't have the time or the artists to actually put the kind of detail into it. But because of where it is, the local stones are all gold or golden. So in other areas, just like a mile or 2 miles away, the stones are white. But in our area, it's these beautiful golden stones, and like at sunset, they take on another color. And so I decided when we actually moved there that I didn't really want to write anymore, and that I was going to be a painter. And I had all my paints and my easels and everything, and forgot for a couple minutes that I'm colorblind and severely colorblind.
It's a bit of a challenge.
So becoming an artist in France, actually a painter, actually was not going to quite happen. So my dream was that I didn't know when we bought the house, we had no idea that it was in the shape it was in. And I thought I was going to become a gardener and that I was going to be a painter. And we literally had everybody except one person walk off the job when the whole house, all the wood had to be torn out. All the wood was no good. So it's a 2-story, 3-story. So all the lumber, Cindy has photos of it just being gutted on the inside. So
we found out that it did not have a roof for a good part of a year during a torrential storm season.
So it just got all rotted.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, but because of that, we got to basically redo the interior, you know, and restore it. We tried to restore as much as we could of the integrity. But like
ourselves, as I was saying, all the workers walked off the job except for one. His name was Michelle, and Michelle stayed, and the three of us basically rebuilt the house. So we learned a lot about building and construction. And,
wow.
Not at all, but we hadn't gone there with the idea that we were going to be doing this at all. That was not our dream.
Right. I can imagine. And
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to mention the book has beautiful photography too. So if people want to have a visual, just gorgeous. I can see the just the atmosphere, the water that's around the area and everything. And you're right. I mean, when you're in France, it's just like you go back in time, and you can't forget that you're colorblind. You can't forget. That makes sense. Like, it doesn't make sense. So I went to Germany and I realized, I forgot I was colorblind. In France, that makes sense because we become part of something else, don't we? Yeah.
One of the things that happened for me was I started living on the clock, the bell tower near us. So at like noon, beautiful bells, and at 5, these beautiful bells. And I rarely looked at a clock. I kind of went by the bells of what time it was. And one of the things that you realize in where we live is in the Dordogne is the time is completely different. everybody seems to have a lot more of it. There's a lot more to go talk to your neighbor and a lot more to whatever you're going to do. In America, when you come back, there just doesn't seem to be enough time to get anything done, to do anything. And it's a real interesting realization when you're there, is that the time is working on a completely different level. You're not constantly going, oh, it's 3:30. Also, the other problem or change we went through was our French was not good enough. So we could not turn on the TV and watch French TV. So that kind of changed for us. Watching TV kind of became like, what are you going to do? Because you can't watch TV. So what are you going to do instead? You're going to play music or whatever you're going to do. And we ended up getting English TV, so that because that thing does happen to you. You eventually want to be able to listen to your own language. And my French, I thought it was good enough. I kept thinking it was good enough. And we had a French tutor before we left, and I really thought that we were going to be okay. But that's one of the things that we realized very quickly was our French was not. How we realized we had to go home was Natalie, our daughter, was going through the grades, and we got into a grade and we were looking at word problems in math. And in English, it said something to the effect of, I was able to translate it, the train is leaving the station in Lyon. It's going to get to Paris at 3. It's a 700-kilometer trip. How fast was the train going? It took me a day to just translate this one math question. And I realized, we can't do 3rd grade. There's no way we can do 3rd grade.
Yeah,
we're going to have to go home.
Yeah, we realized that we were going to probably get tutors in order to do the homework. And, it was kind of like, okay. And then people said, well, do you want your daughter to be French or do you want her to be American? Because, you get to a certain age and the culture becomes part of them. And we're like, we don't really know if we're ready to make that decision. Let's go back and, take stock. And well, we kept the house.
Mm-hmm. So you're here in Los Angeles now. And are there plans then to go back? Because on top of everything, then we have COVID and travel restrictions and everything going on. So where are you guys?
We've been trying to get back for a year now. And we are just now, our visa, we've just started it now. And it hopefully will take a little less than 3 months. But the only reason we get to go to France is because we do own that home. And we may have been able to pull that off a year ago, but nobody was saying that. No one in France, the consulate, no one was saying, because you own a home, you get to come back. But now that seems to be the only door that is open to us. The only way we can get back is because we own that house. Like, I was just looking the other day at what it would cost to fly to France, just curious. And the restrictions were, you can't go.
Like, you can't.
You can't go.
No. And I don't know when that's going to change. Hopefully you'll get the vaccine passport, and when they create that, and it'll change. But right now, you have to have a specific visa and a reason. Students can go if you're already in school, if it's your 2nd year. But you can't just now start at the, Sorbonne or anything.
Right.
Being American, it's it's complicated.
Yeah. So as far as the book, and, let's focus on the fact that people, at the very least right now, if they want to escape to France through this book, they can. Tell us what people will discover when they read. What's inside these pages? What are they going to find out?
I think what they'll find out is that France is not what they think it is. I think a lot of Americans have an image that the French are not welcoming and not warm. And because we were in such a small town and we had the most amazing neighbor who had traveled and welcomed us from the very beginning. And we met some incredible people that several English teachers that, helped us.
They're French English teachers.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to find out that it's an amazing place to also live, to visit, but to also live. It was very welcoming. and a great experience.
I think she hit on something that I probably would not have guessed, and that is how warm and friendly the French are where we are in the Dordogne. I can't speak of everywhere, but where we are, we made more friends in the first couple of years than we made living in Los Angeles in 10 or 15 years. It was strange how inviting they really were to us. Made us feel at home.
And there's a lot of rich history in this area too. You're near the cave art from the famous Lascaux cave art.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong. But
yes, that's right.
Talk a little bit about that if you could. I mean,
we have neighbors that wrote a great house called A Castle in My Backyard, or A Castle in Our Backyard. And in their backyard, you can literally see this castle, Castle Na. And she is a university professor. She was one of the few people that actually had the opportunity to go into the original cave. So they made a copy, and everybody else goes into a copy of the original cave, which is really well done. Very few people get to go into the real original cave. And my sister was also a professor, and she had written all these papers, and she had gotten a number of opportunities where she was paid to go to France and come, and the door was just about to open for her to go into Lascaux, and it closed, and we were thinking we'd all be able to go in with her, but there are so many other wonderful caves and places to go. Yes,
there are. There are far more that are the original.
Yeah, and some you take a train underground, some you take a boat underground, and they're all great adventures. So a lot of people are coming to the area for foie gras, because it's great. The food in this area is spectacular, and for these caves, but also for these castles. That there's so many beautiful castles in this area that are open. You can go through and you can walk through. Some of them have tried to show you what life might have been like a few hundred years ago. So there's a lot to see, and there's a lot to do in this little area. And so the British knew all about the Dordogne, but the Americans didn't. I'd never even heard of the Dordogne when we went there the first time. But there are a number of British people that live there that are almost, you can get the sense that they're almost trying to reclaim it, because the 100-Year War, was all about this area. And there are so many British people that didn't integrate. They don't know the French. They don't speak French, and we didn't want to be like that. We didn't. So it would have been real easy to go over there and latch onto that, and not have the adventure that we ended up having. All of our friends, I would say like 85%, 90% are French, and we have a few British friends, and we finally decided, we'll let them in, kind of thing. But we wanted a real French adventure. And when we went, we literally thought that we were going to become French, that we were going to stay, we were going to live there, and we were going to get to know this culture, and we were going to be a part of it. And very, very early on, very nice people let us know that, no, you will never be French. They will never accept you. But they said, your daughter, she was 2.5 when we got there. Mm-hmm. Your daughter, they will accept as a local, as a Paragordan, but they will never accept her as French. And this was coming from a woman who was in her 70s, a very talented, amazing person who had come from Russia as a little girl and moved to Paris as a little girl. And she was the one telling us, now in her 70s, they don't think of me as French, and I've lived here since I was a little girl.
Yeah.
It was an interesting perspective, because people come here and they become Americans.
That's what we were trying to explain to them. Anybody that comes to America is an American. Yeah, but you can come to France and never be French. It's like, okay.
Right. And what does your daughter think? I mean, does she want to go back? What are her thoughts?
Well, she is going back with us, and I don't know how long she'll stay. She's 19 now. So it's quite a bit of difference.
But she can speak. Her French is so beautiful because she learned it at 2.5 years old. Her accent is absolutely beautiful. And for her, I think the transition going back it's going to be actually a little bit easier for us because there's just something about Natalie that she is at home basically everywhere she goes, because started off in the United States and then lived in France and then came back here. And it's all one big world to her, which is really cool. Yeah. And when she decides that she wants to go back and really tackle French, she took French in high school, and she did, what do you call it, college French?
AP French.
Oh yeah, AP French. So and her teacher, everybody comments on how good her accent is. It's just coming, a word she's never heard, never seen. I mean, she'll look at it in print and know exactly how to pronounce it. And so she's got that innate thing that's going to work for her.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. No. How about let's touch a little bit on your writing, because you've both written for TV. What was it like transitioning from writing for TV to writing a memoir?
So I was working at this place, and they had hired Cynthia in, and I was looking for the perfect pickup line. And I went up to her and said, I can't quite finish this one-act play. Want to help me finish it? So our very beginning was collaborating as writers. So we finished this play, and it got produced many, many years later. It got produced in Los Angeles. But our beginning was as writers. And it was interesting because I've known a lot of people who you might not want to work together all day and then go home and be home. But for us, the collaboration has always been so easy. It's just been,
my gosh.
well, at least it seemed like it was to me.
Okay. She said park.
Right.
Well, it was easy, I think, because I was a little controlling. So we would be working, say, we wrote a number of screenplays together. So you'd outline the screenplay, and you'd see a scene coming up, and you realize, yeah, I don't really want to write that one. So I would hand everything I didn't want to write over to her. Here, you write that.
Oh,
so
I see how that works.
When we got onto television, we had written so much, we had done so much together that it was just second nature for us to write together. So how it actually started was we weren't married, and Cynthia was going to be Carol O'Connor's assistant, and she was going to Georgia, and she was going to be gone for, I think they said 7 or 8 months, and I didn't want that. So I decided that I would go with her. Again, the painter in me, she had rented a house on a lake in Georgia. And I was just going to live at the house and paint. I was going to paint the lake every day, going to paint the lake. And I had never seen In the Heat of the Night, had no idea what it was. And I just decided.
You'd never been to the South either.
I never been to the South, but I just decided to see if I could write one. I didn't care if it worked or it didn't work. I was like, can I do this? So I'd keep asking her, like, which one's Bubba? Which one is Parker? I had no idea who anybody was. So I was just playing around with this script, and they needed somebody on the set, on there that could type, and I could type. So I thought, oh, make a little money, go in and type everybody else's script. So I'd sit there and type, and I saw what they were doing. I saw how they were writing it. So
Right.
I finished my script. And just then, they were working on a script, and I had written my show for Howard Rollins, who I thought was one of the greatest actors I'd ever seen. And when my script was done, they were in the midst of shooting something, and Howard got sick, and Howard had to be hospitalized, and suddenly they were going to shut down because they didn't have a backup script. And I kind of said, well, I've got one, thinking I could just push a button and all of Howard Rollins' character would just be, all those lines would just be given to somebody else. And they went, okay. And then they said to me that they were looking for a staff writer, and I could be a staff writer, but every screenplay, every teleplay I wrote would be money taken out. Instead of getting more money, I'd have money taken out. I was like, what? That didn't make any sense to me. So threw Cindy's name on the script. Well, you can't take all the money out. You're going to have to give half to her. So that's basically how our first script on Hila and I got done, was they were going to take all the money that I was going to be paid for the screenplay out of my money. So we put her name on it. She can write, she can rewrite. And I didn't really necessarily want to do all the rewriting that is involved in television. So that was really great to just go, here, you do that.
You do that. Okay. Cynthia, I'm going to give you like the spotlight right now. Okay. Because I can tell he's like, yeah, I'll give this to Cynthia. You have a photography book coming out soon too. Can you tell us really quickly about that?
Well, it's called The Souvenirs of the Dordogne. And it is a lot of photography that I did in the first 2 years living there. It's primarily slide photography. So the colors are really rich and vibrant, something I don't always feel like you're getting, shooting digitally. And it tells a story of the river a lot. And as, for example, the picture behind me on the wall, I used to get up in the morning at like 6 and the mist was still on the water. And I don't get up in the morning here and shoot now. It's not something that gets me out of bed, But there, it's just so amazing and so rich. And so it's a lot about it's the culture, la vie, the life there, the river, and the people. And it'll be out hopefully the end of this year. And we hope to have book 2 out in 2020. 2022. Yeah, 2022. It's hard to say 2022.
I know, right? It's just around the corner. How can people find both of you online, websites? Where can they find the current book and stay in touch?
You want to take that?
Oh, well, we have a website, villapage.com. And I think you're going to start adding, we started a blog, and then actually the book
and then COVID hit.
Yeah, there were all these. In fact, I think we were going to do your show a year ago. I think it was a year ago. And all publicity, everything got canceled, all book tour stuff, book signings, everything came to a crashing halt. And it's funny that the book actually has stayed in its categories. It has stayed in the top 100.
Oh, Amazon is doing quite well.
And it's on Amazon. Great. So people can find it on Amazon. They can find it on your website. Cynthia and William, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been delightful talking to you about your books, your writing, and your wonderful experience. I appreciate you being on the show.
Well, thank you for having us.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
You are welcome. And thank you, everybody, for being with us today on the Books That Make You show. Please find out more information about us on our website. It's booksthatmakeyou.com. We're also on Facebook and on Instagram. Until next time, all of my bookish buddies, please enjoy all of the books that make you exactly who you are.
The executive producer for Books That Make You is Desiree Duffy. Produced and sound mastered by Phil Giangrande. Engineering by Dave Nabox. Social media and promotion by Bree Sweeter. For more, visit booksthatmakeyou.com.